Christopher Columbus was born in Italy in 1451. The 1400s were a time of change in Europe. At that time, a lot of people in the world thought that the Earth was flat. However, many educated Europeans realized that the Earth was indeed round. This possibility of a round Earth changed the way that people thought. It was also of great interest to Columbus. When he was a young man, he decided to study geography. He also decided to go to sea. Columbus wanted to find the answer to a major geographical problem. At the time, Europeans wanted spices from India and China. However, it cost too much money to carry these products from the east using the traditional land and sea routes. Columbus wanted to find a new sea route from Europe to Asia. He knew that the Earth was round. Because of this, Columbus thought he could reach the east by sailing west. However, he also knew that sailing around the world would be costly. Therefore, he needed a lot of money to find out if he was right. In 1492, Columbus persuaded King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain to give him the money for the voyage. He received enough money for 3 small ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Columbus had his ships. He also had high hopes for this new sea route from Europe to Asia. Columbus and his group sailed west, but they didn't know what was waiting for them. The voyage was very long. On the 9th of October, after a month at sea, the sailors were tired of looking for land. They wanted to go back to Europe. Finally, Columbus agreed. He said that they would look for land for 3 more days. If there was still no land, they would go back to Europe. Then, just 3 days later, on the 12th of October, a sailor on the Pinta cried out. He could see land. At the time, Columbus didn't know what land they could see. People now think the land was actually a small island in the Bahamas. It was probably the one that is now known as San Salvador. Columbus and his sailors got into a small boat and went to the island. There, after months at sea, they got out of the boat and finally walked onto land. The land that would one day be called the Americas. However, Columbus didn't realize that he was on a new continent. He believed that he and his sailors were near the coast of Asia. He thought they were in the islands of the East Indies. He even called the island people who came to meet him Indians. Because of this, people incorrectly called Native Americans Indians for hundreds of years. Columbus returned to Spain. He brought gold, parrots, and other things from the New World to show the king and queen. For him, this was the high point of his life as a sailor. As a result of his voyage, he was considered by some to be a very important man in Europe. After his first voyage to the New World, Columbus didn't just stay in Europe. During his life, he made 3 more voyages to the New World, but in the end, he never achieved what he really wanted. He never found a new route to bring spices from Asia to Europe. Columbus was a disappointed man when he died on the 20th of May, 1506. However, questions about what Columbus achieved didn't end with his death. There are still concerns about Columbus's voyage today. For hundreds of years, people believed that Columbus was the first European to reach the Americas. However, people now know that the Vikings reached North America 500 years earlier than Columbus. It is true that Columbus found a new world for Europeans to explore. However, in the end, this exploration caused a number of problems for the Native Americans. Columbus made 1492 one of the most important years in world history. However, this importance was for both good and bad reasons. One thing is certain, however. On the 12th of October 1492, the New World and the Old changed forever.